Welcome to the channel, everybody, and thanks for checking it out. This channel is called Ham Radio Dude, and this right here is the Tidradio TD-H3. If you recall, I was one of the people during the first episodes of the Tidradio TD-H8, and I was not very happy with the Tidradio TD-H8, to include reasons being inaccurate representation of the capacity of the battery, a horrible looking spectrum, a programming cable that barely fit into the side of the radio, and I'm sure there was much more, to include very low mic gain settings when talking, and a huge security vulnerability which sent plain text passwords to Tidradio server. But I'm going to put all that aside today, and since I purchased this radio, I'm going to give it a first look review right here on the channel. I do want to give a fair warning that I have had this radio out of the box because I wanted to make sure everything was fully charged before we did all our tests. This allows me to have the most accurate representation of the spectrum, the power output, and we're going to deplete the battery at the end to see how many milliamp hours it actually is. As I take a look at the battery itself, which is where we're going to start, I'm shown that the battery is 2500 milliamp hours, and so I guess that's possible. Battery otherwise looks to be in pretty good shape. As you can see, there's USB-C on it, and you could plug in USB-C directly to the battery. A couple of things I wanted to point out here is if we didn't want to charge directly with the battery, we could utilize this cradle with this power brick and the included USB cable. So everything is included to charge is what I'm trying to say. It would probably be quicker to use the actual cradle charger, but I'm not completely certain as this was already fully charged when I got it. Now on the back of the radio, there is a FCC ID. And this FCC ID, if you look it up on FCCID.io, does show a valid certification from late January 2023 on the Tidradio TD-H3. So even though these are different model numbers from what I purchased online and what it says right here, this is a valid FCC ID in accordance with Part 15. So we will test out the spectrum to see how it looks. And let's just go ahead and plug this battery in right now. It looks like it slides in. I mean, I just took it out a moment ago, but it looks like it slides in. And my first observations are, well, that was my fault. Wow, that was like butter. I'm actually really impressed with how easy it is to slide in that battery. Let's do that again, and I'll try to go nice and slow for you, okay? Right here, it's just kind of sitting in, and now I'm going to slightly push it in. Okay, maybe not as easy that time, but I had a slight pressure down on the back of the battery, and it slid right in, so that was great. Next, the antenna for the radio. The antenna port on the radio is an SMA male, meaning the antenna that is going to be required should be an SMA female. This one was included, and I will tell you that this antenna feels to be of pretty decent quality. I would say it's a step above something like a Baofeng, but I'm going to go ahead and screw this in now. I'm going to tell you this right now, too, that when you screw in the antenna, it might feel like it's all the way down, but there's just a little bit more to go, as you can see right there. It's kind of difficult to get this antenna in, and I immediately have two thoughts on this. My thought number one is that's a feature, and that allows to have a better gap between the radio and the antenna so that moisture doesn't get in. And my second thought would be that on FCCID.io, they show this with a different antenna, slightly different. And so maybe at the last minute, Tidradio said, hey, let's swap out the antennas with a different one. With that in though, and we know it's fully secure, let's talk about some of the features that the Tidradio TD-H3 allegedly has to offer. To take a look at the features, we're going to take a look at the manual. And I did open this up here briefly, and one of the observations I made is there's nice photos in here. There's really nice graphic design work, meaning there's color and everything's very simple to follow. Just off of first impressions, the manual looks to be pretty detailed. So that's a step forward for Tidradio as well. Back over here, the main features of the radio. Looks like dual display, dual watch, and dual band. This will operate in UHF, VHF, UHF, UHF, or VHF and UHF. And that means that we could have VHF and VHF displaying on A band and B band, UHF and UHF displaying on A band and B band, or a combination of UHF and VHF displaying on A band and B band. That so far doesn't mean this will do crossband repeat where you could listen on one frequency and retransmit what you're listening to on another frequency. 199 programmable channels, which we're going to test out. It does have 50 CTCSS tones, 5 watts on high, 2 watts on low, and it's adjustable. Bluetooth programming, and it looks like there's a button right here that says Bluetooth. Airband, we should be able to receive on Airband. I don't think this is going to transmit on Airband. That would be a whole nother FCC requirement. And if you feel the need to, you could go ahead and pause the video right now and read the rest of the features. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thanks for watching the channel. If you like ASMR, here you go. I think it's time. Yeah. Now, before we turn the radio on, notice how this fits. I will tell you, without the belt clip, it actually fits okay in my hand, albeit I don't have huge hands. It's a little small. This radio looks to be about 2x4. Yeah, 2x4, of course, plus the antenna size, right? So that should give you an idea right there of how long the antenna is. Pause the video and check out for yourself if you'd like. So the radio is small. It's very small, like a talkabout kind of small. And when we turn it on,
welcome.
I'm going to do that again here. I'm focused right here, by the way.
Welcome.
Okay, the actual main screen looks fine, but that splash screen looks so bad.
Welcome.
It's just they converted their logo, and the conversion of the logo made it look blocky. But looks like on here we have signal strength meter. We have our battery level. It shows whether we're on high or low power. It shows what frequency we're on. There's an arrow pointing to which band we're on, the A band or the B band. Let's go ahead, and we see that the radio screen already timed out. So we're going to have to go through the menu, and let's set the radio to not time out for the purpose of this video. If I hit the Bluetooth button, I could wake the radio back up. I'm sure if I hit any button, I could wake the radio back up. But if I hit it again, it looks like it then brings us into a menu. And there's an up and down setting on this keypad. So the buttons are pretty responsive on the keypad. It looks like there's 54 menu options. And we're just going to have to find out the one that shows the display not to time out. Oh, it looks like on here too, it will show us the version. So this is the December 29th, 2023 firmware version for ham radio. And I can go online right now and see if there's another firmware version. Let me do that. Hey, I'm back, and just after a minute or two of looking at Tidradio's website, I did not find any updated firmware. I'm not saying that there's not updated firmware. I'm just saying that at the moment I didn't locate any. So I did turn the radio off. I'm going to turn it back on here, and we're going to go back through the menu. My observation of the menu, though, is it's really simple. You hit the Bluetooth button and then the up and the down arrows. You're going to notice I don't hear any audio. And the reason I mentioned that, as I'm hitting the down arrows, sometimes some radios will tell you 49, 50, and it might even tell you the different options that there are. This is really good for our visually impaired friends. And right here, I don't hear it. So I'm going through the menu to see if I can't find that option as well. So two things we need to do is enable the display and also enable the ability for the radio to tell me where I'm at. And on option 14, I did find that the voice is on. However, it doesn't go through the menu and tell me what options I'm on. And I personally don't hear any tones that would help me indicate what channel or menu item I'm in. Even when I go into the sub-menu of backlight, option number 5, I'm on continuous now, but if I change it, none of the tones are different. So it's very difficult for a visually impaired individual to be able to operate this radio, from what I could tell. And I do have some visually impaired friends who will let me know in the comments below.
Confirm.
It will confirm it, though, so that's good. And then to get out of the menu, we're just going to go ahead and hold down.
Confirm.
to get out of the menu, we're just going to hit the back button, which is also the VFO memory button. Hey, here's the deal. I want to give you the live experience of what's happening, but I need to mix up a couple of parts in the next minute or two, and you're going to see why, because there's a problem, and I don't want to have to go back and forth between what I was trying to work on and the problem. So I'm going to show you the audio comparisons first, and then you're going to get to see what the problem is. As I was saying, so far the radio appears to be pretty decent. The rubber on the sides is nice. It feels good. There are a couple little things that might be able to be tweaked. Let's go ahead and my favorite test is we're going to try to listen to NOAA weather radio first, and then we're going to try to listen to some ham bands. So let's go ahead and try Chicago NOAA weather radio. And what we'll do is we're going to get another comparable price radio, and we're going to compare the audio between the two with the same antenna, okay?
162550. Friday night.
This NOAA weather radio is in Chicago, approximately 45 or so miles away.
Cloudy in the morning, then becoming mostly cloudy. Highs in the mid-40s. Saturday night, mostly cloudy. Lows in the lower 30s. Sunday, most feet occasionally to 9 feet. Forecast for waters within 5 nautical miles ashore on Lake Michigan for the following: Winthrop Harbor to Wilmette Harbor, Illinois, Wilmette Harbor to Northerly Island, Illinois, and Northerly Island to Calumet Harbor, Illinois.
Now I'm going to kind of go into what I observed about this antenna as I was swapping out the antennas. So here you go. I think that this is a problem. Hopefully it's not going to be a major problem for many radios, and hopefully it could be fixed.
Thursday, south winds to 39.
And now let's go ahead and turn this radio off, unscrew the antenna. We'll put it on the Fang. Oh, that antenna is difficult to get off now. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oops. There goes that light again. There we go. The antenna is very difficult. There's something going on with the antenna. I recognize it's supposed to be snug and fit, but that's too snug and fit. Let's take a look here. Let me see if I can't get this on camera here. Yeah, there it is. Look at that. Did I take away pieces of plastic from the internal SMA port there? This antenna is too small for this radio. And we're back live. Okay, so my best guess on this whole thing was that there was something that was in here during the building process that basically was clogging this up, because that stuff almost looked like plastic or dirt or grime that was on the antenna. And I got it all cleaned up on the antenna itself. Now the port also looks good now. And now when I go to screw it in before, and this is just a demonstration, but before I would start having a difficult time screwing it down. It was somewhere like right about here. And now it just screws in with no problem. So whatever it was seems to be resolved. Thankfully, it's not a major problem. But if you're having that issue, you might check to see internally if that's clean, and then if your antenna threads are clean as well. I know people are going to tell me that I was too aggressive on it and I need to be more gentle, but that's incorrect. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to get this programmed up for my All-Star node. And my All-Star node is connected to the Ham Radio 2.0 hub. I am back, and that was really simple to program this memory channel. For now, I'm in VFO mode, but if I click on memory channel, channel 2 is now my All-Star node. And it was very simple to program, just going through the menu and setting my CTCSS tone. I didn't have an offset. I set it to low power. And now we're going to give this a shot. Hopefully somebody's on the Ham Radio 2.0 All-Star link. This is W9FFF. Is there anybody out there for a radio check on a new radio?
Breaking station, this is KD4USD, the All-Star. Knoxville, Tennessee, you're loud and clear, sir.
Thanks a lot. The audio sounds okay and I'm clear. I appreciate it. And this is W9FFF. I'll be clear.
And W9FFF, KD4USD. Yeah, audio is great. Even to the All-Star link on my end through all the things I have here. Sounds great. You're doing good. Keep up the great work. Name here's Tom. 73s. KD4 USD.
So I got some good audio reports there, and I just did confirm by going into another room and transmitting, and things seem to sound okay. I'm going to leave it at that for right now as far as the transmitting goes. So far, I will tell you that this is looking to be a decent little radio. We did transmit a little bit, but I'm still going to test the power level now, because in order to test the spurious emissions or to see how this looks on the spectrum, we need to find out how much power this could transmit on maximum. High power VHF. Low power VHF. Low power UHF. Wait, okay. This is flipped over to VHF. I'm going to go check my cables. I'll be right back. Long story short, I checked my cables. I did compare with another radio. My meter is fine. My dummy load's good. This radio is registering 3.95 watts on high power on VHF, and on low power, not even a watt. Then we go to UHF, and on low power, we don't show any power output. And then, of course, on high power, it's... Well, I did see 2 watts there for a second on high power. Sorry I didn't get that part on screen. But with that, I have to make a couple of guesses real quick here. Now, I'm only making these guesses for fun, and if you don't want to listen to them, fast forward 30 seconds. My guess is the spectrum is going to be horrible. And why do I think that? Well, you know, a lot of times if the radio is doing 5 watts, it might be doing 5 watts, but the frequency we're testing on, for example, on VHF was 146.520 into a dummy load. I had significantly less power. And maybe this radio is doing 5 watts, but it's spread out through many, many different spurs throughout the spectrum. So when you have a dirty radio, you'll lose power on the fundamental frequency you're trying to transmit on. I'm going to hook that up right now, and now we're going to get the results. Boom. Hey, a couple of things I want to mention. Here are the results from the spectrum analyzer, and actually they don't look too bad. But there were a few things that I wanted to point out to you, because undoubtedly in the next month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, you'll see many of these reviews and people will show you their spectrum results. There's a lot of things that could affect a spectrum. Firmware probably isn't one of them. However, what is one of them might be improper cables. If you have a cable that is bent or has any kind of pull on it, you might see very bad results in the spectrum analyzer. And to take that a step further, the results that I get on the spectrum analyzer aren't accurate either, because I'm not in a room that's RF sealed, meaning there's no electrical interference going in or out. There's a lot of variables here. But if you see somebody with a tiny SA, they should be using the proper attenuation. They should have quality cables. And I happen to use the DSA 815. All that stuff still applies. So my tests, they look good, but I do want you to know that this shouldn't be taken as the word. And now let's go ahead and check with a computer-based analyzer to see if this is really a 2500 milliamp hour battery. I'm going to go ahead and charge the battery back up so it's at its full capacity. Then utilizing this analyzer that I purchased from West Mountain Radio, I'm going to deplete the battery. We'll be right back. The battery is advertised as 2500 milliamp hours or 2.5 amp hours with 18.5 watt hours. And my test showed 2.3731, again, 2.3731 amp hours with 16.29 watt hours. So it would be just a little under of what is advertised, but probably considered within an acceptable range. One issue I did seem to run into is as the radio was plugged in and the battery was charging on the cradle, I had a red light indicating it was charging, and there wasn't too much of this to charge because we didn't do too much, as you just saw. But 30 minutes later, it was still red. An hour later, it was still red. An hour and a half later, it was still showing charging, and I became concerned. At that point, I took the radio and battery out of the cradle and I placed it back in, and the light was green, which may indicate that the charger didn't shut off, or there might be some kind of faulty shut off or circuit in here. I'm not sure exactly how that works. You could let me know below. I'm sure And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to recharge this back up and see if I could replicate the issue. So we'll be back in just a few. As we saw at the beginning of the episode, the charger has a power brick, or you could plug it in via USB. I am in the power brick right now, which reads 5 volts, 2000 milliamps. If you look at the cradle, I'm no longer in the cradle, but it reads 5 volts, 1000 milliamps. No matter whether I'm in the cradle or I'm in the USB-C port on the battery, I'm getting 4.92 volts with 0.49 amps. Now, what time is it? We started at, let's say, 0500. It's currently 1400 hours. That means it has been 9 hours, minus I had a half an hour pause. I took this out of the cradle charger when I went and bought this because I wanted to be able to see what was going on. And that means we're at about 8.5 hours, and we haven't even finished charging yet. It should be, I hope, any minute. In fact, let's just do this real quick. I'm going to unplug this USB. We're going to take the battery out, and I'm going to check how much voltage this battery has. Now, this might be an issue, right? I'm actually half tempted to open this up. We'll save that for another day. .41 volts. Okay. And it was still showing charging when I took it off just there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to plug back in, and it shows completed. I have a problem here, and I don't know how to explain it, but this was read just a second ago. And what I'm thinking is there's a problem with the charging system, and it's probably the actual battery itself. Now, I have no way of testing that, so this is where I rely on YouTubers who have already received this radio free of charge from Tidradio to step up to the plate and let us all know, how does your battery look? What's your charge time? You know, it's kind of really weird that I got this radio and I'm immediately having problems with the battery being 8.5 hours to charge. And now we know that it's not actually saying it's finished charging. It's like it's not reading the voltage until you unplug it and plug it back in. I'm not an electrical engineer. Never claimed to be an expert of any sorts on any subject. And so I don't know the answer to this one, but hold on. 8 hours, 55 minutes. Now, again, I was saying I'm not an electrical engineer and I probably don't know what's going on. I could make some assumptions here that, you know, if this is anything like LifePo 4, maybe there's a BMS in here, or battery management system, and maybe that battery management system is faulty, or maybe they're using recycled batteries. Again, I'm not the guy, so please let me know in the comments below. If you're in the Northern Illinois area, or you have a way of testing this, get a hold of me, and maybe I can get you this battery, get you this radio to test, so we can figure out what's going on. Next up, let's take this radio and take the USB cable that came with the radio. We're going to plug it into the computer and hope everything is secure and safe. But we're going to use Chirp to program this radio. And the reason I say that is I downloaded the latest daily build of Chirp, and it shows support for this radio. And we should see if it works. As far as the Bluetooth testing goes, to see that OD Master app and see if it still steals your password, I need to reevaluate that at a later date. This video is already about 25 minutes long, and I think I've given you a lot of good information. Let's plug it into the computer, pray a little bit, and check out Chirp. With us using Chirp, I have to make the assumption that we might need some drivers for this radio, so it may not work directly or immediately, but I got it plugged in now, and I'm going to power it on. And I'm going to go check my device manager. And yes, it appears that it was detected without having any kind of, drivers that were needed to be downloaded. That's very convenient. I'll give them that. So COM port 22. Now this should be the H3 ham version. Okay, very good. Looks like we already have some stuff programmed into here, and that's great. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use Chirp just to download some random repeaters, put them in, try to fill that 199 channels up. I'll be right back. What I did notice is if I go ahead and I try to upload 199 channels, I will overwrite NOAA weather radio, which I find to be kind of odd and cumbersome, but hey, I'm just making that observation. It looks like it's going to write just okay. And right here, I'm writing to the radio. I just put one channel in at 188. We already have 199 full, and we can't put in any more than that. It looks like it wrote it just fine, so that's great. But that also made me realize, why don't we just test out Airband here to try to be as complete and detailed as possible? One thing I wanted to point out was, as I look at this manual here, and I know I'm really straining my voice, I'm not feeling well, but as I look at this manual here, I don't really see any information about how to check the airband or how to receive airband mode. I went through the manual, I didn't see it, doesn't mean it's not there, but boy, you know, I'm tired, so I guess I'm just going to try to figure it out. As I mentioned, like, hey, checking the manual, sometimes things don't show up right away, but I did find it in the manual. It's menu option 48. You enable Airband, and at that point, you could type in something like 121.150, which happens to be an O'Hare tower. And we're going to listen for some planes. As we do that, though, one of the things I may have seen online was people saying that the illumination on the keypad doesn't exist. Now, before I go outside, I wanted to show you what the radio looks like. That was cool. In the dark. And I know you probably can't see the screen. It's crystal clear. Let's see here. But more importantly, that case illumination is really cool. And the numbers on here. The numbers on here all illuminate. Whereas I said just a second ago they weren't illuminated. They do way better when it's actually dark out. Let's go outside. Here we are outside. Finally a sunny day out here. And you might not think it looks okay, but I will tell you, while looking at it, the contrast of the white on the black is very nice, and I could see the yellow H, W, and AM, which again probably isn't showing up very well on the camera, but in actual person, it shows up very nice. I'm pretty happy with that for sure. With an attempt to try to make sure that I get the best audio that I can so we could hear whether or not it's clear audio, I've switched to a J-pole. And the reason I've switched to a J-pole is with the stock antenna, indoors, outdoors, standing on my tippy toes, I haven't had any luck hearing any kind of airband. Everything I hear is just pure static, and there might be a faint voice in the background, but it doesn't sound good. So what we're going to do is we're going to listen here with the J-pole and see if it's any better. And then we'll probably switch over to the UVK5 and see how that audio sounds on the same frequency.
Chicago Jazz 962, 9.6, climbing 15,000 direct feedback. Normal speed out of 1,000, climb and maintain flight level 230, Jazz 962.
Okay, so there was actually way better sounding audio than there was in the other test with just the stock antenna. And even though there was better audio, it's almost like distorted. And I think that that's a common issue with the inexpensive radios. But let's swap over now to the UVK5. I am going to swap back to the Tidradio TD-H3 one more time.
1517 is 9.4 climbing 1,15,000. And then normal speed after 13 level 1500.
And just for a baseline, I'm going to plug the stock antenna back into this Tidradio. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here is the deal. Thanks for watching the channel. I appreciate you watching the channel and sticking around if you did, because this is a long video, and that's why we're going to end it where it is right now. I could always come and revisit certain features in the future. Like, for example, I know I didn't even go over the Bluetooth stuff yet or the OD master programming software, and that's quite frankly because I'm running out of time. But there are a lot of features on this radio, $39.99 for this radio plus shipping. And the only real huge complaints I was seeing was the antenna didn't screw in correctly. Although now that I've screwed it and unscrewed it and screwed it and unscrewed it, it goes in just fine, no problem. My best guess is there was something from manufacturing stuck internally here, and it was causing some kind of blockage. My main concern, though, of course, is the battery, and that battery charge time of 8 hours is kind of odd. We are right at about 24 milliamp hours or 2.4 amp hours for the battery time. On the Spectrum, it looks okay, and you're not quite getting 5 watts of power. I do like the way the radio feels in the hands. There is an illuminated keypad. The screen looks really good, especially when it's completely dark outside, and in the sun it looks just fine as well. That USB-C programming capability is really awesome. The fact that there's Chirp support like out of the box, that's great. USB-C on the battery is good as well, as long as the battery can charge in less than 8 hours, which I think I got a bad battery. I'd be curious to know what everybody in the comments says who's had this radio and has more experience with it. So anyway, again, this was a review of a radio that I did purchase for $39.99, and I'm going to leave it in your court. Do you want this radio for $39.99, or would you rather see something else? Thanks for checking out the channel, everybody. Until next time, take care.